In this video, we're going to review how to make a histogram in Excel. And to make a histogram, we need to have some data. So the data we'll be using is the level of interest over time in the search term standard deviation, which I've downloaded from Google Trends. So here's a picture of the fluctuation over time, and over here to the left, we've got the actual data. So that goes down to 2015, and it starts back in 2004. All right, so we're going to make a histogram of the ratings data. Now, the first thing we need to do when we make a histogram is figure out what bins we want to use. And to have a sense of what bins we want to use, first thing we need to do is get a sense of the range of our data. So I've gone ahead here and calculated the minimum and the maximum. So that's the minimum over all the ratings. That's 16. And we have the maximum over all the ratings is 100. Okay, so we're basically looking at data points in that range. We've got 500 plus weeks of data here, so we're probably going to be looking to use somewhere between, say, 10 and 25 data points, if you think roughly the square root of the number of data points. Now, because we end at 100, we may, and we know that the rating can never be less than 0, we might just try doing bins in increments of 10 up to 100. All right, so these are going to be my rating bins. And now I'm going to go ahead and go to the data analysis menu, and I'm going to scroll down to the histogram tool, pick OK. So the first thing I need to do is tell it where my data is, and that's there. So those are my observations. And I need to tell it where the bin range is. Now, if I didn't have a good guess of what I wanted my bins to be, I could just leave this blank, and then Excel will go ahead and automatically generate bins. And if I don't like those, I could modify them. But I've already got a reasonable starting point, or I think I do, for my bins, so I'm just going to go ahead and say my bins are here. Now notice that I've included the word rating there, so I'm going to tick labels. Right, so that's going to show up on the chart. It's not essential that I do that, but I do need to be consistent. If I include the word, then I should check the labels. All right, now I need to tell Excel where to put the output. So I'll click on output range there, and I will tell it to put the output right there next to my existing bins. Okay, and most important of all, I want to get a chart out of this, so I have to check chart output. Otherwise, I'm just going to get the bins. Go ahead and click OK. And Excel has gone ahead and repeated the bins, and these are the frequencies. So those are the number of weeks that the rating was in each of the bins. And the way Excel works the bins, this is the upper limit of the rating range. So, well, it was never less than 0. In fact, it was never less than 10, and we knew that already because the minimum was 16, and there were 6 weeks when it was between 10 and 20, and so on. If there had been any values greater than 100, those would have spilled out here, but of course we knew that there weren't. Okay, now here's the chart. Now this is a pretty awful histogram. First of all, it's got this ridiculous title here, histogram, frequency. That doesn't tell me anything either. The word rating showed up here because I put it there, otherwise this would just say bin. So let's see if we can clean this up. Now, of course, at this point we might have decided that we didn't like our bins very much if we didn't like the picture that came out, if we didn't think it did a good job of communicating the dispersion in the data, but this looks pretty reasonable to me, so let's go ahead and work with this. Start off by giving ourselves a little bit of room to work with here. Okay, now that's not really telling me anything, so let's go ahead and delete that. And let's modify this, and let's say weekly interest and standard deviation. That was the search term. Okay, let's see if we can get that. We'll make this a little bit wider, so get that all in one line. Okay, now the bins. So the bins are okay here. I don't really need that last one, so I don't really need that last empty bin there. So let's go ahead and modify that. So we'll go to select data, and we'll edit that, and instead of taking all of those, we'll just take those. Okay, and we might want to modify that as well. And instead of just calling it frequency, we could say number of weeks. So that's the number of weeks that the rating for the search term standard deviation was in each of those bins. All right, now there's one other issue to remember, which, as I said before, the labels here are a little bit confusing. You need to know that the way Excel does its histograms, what we're seeing here is the upper limit of the range. All right, and unfortunately there isn't a really good way to fix this in Excel, but if I want to be very explicit, what I could do is go ahead and modify the labels here so that they actually indicate the ranges. So for example, instead of the number 0, I could do put a quote and then do 0 to 9. And now that indicates that that bin really means 0 to 9. And then the next bin means 10 to 19. And then the next bin means 20 to 29, and so on. Okay, it's not a perfect solution. As you can see, this introduces its own issues in terms of legibility, but it does make it explicit what each bin is actually capturing. I usually end up just leaving the Excel defaults and try to make a note somewhere that what the label indicates is the upper limit of the range.